Today, I'm going to talk to you about vending at conventions and what the real costs are and what you need to take into account when you're deciding whether or not you're making money selling books at a convention. Because, spoiler alert, most of the people you talk to aren't. Hey there. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I'm glad to have you. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books, and I'm the author of over 40 novel-length works, including The Black Knight Chronicles, Bubba the Monster Hunter, and Quincy Harker Demon Hunter, just to name a few. So today, I want to talk about something near and dear to my black, shriveled little heart, conventions. A lot of you know from watching other videos or seeing me at them that I do a lot of conventions, and I sell a lot of books at conventions. So some folks may have been surprised when in a recent video I said, hey, authors, conventions are not how you're going to make most of your money. Because if I'm not making money at them, why am I doing them? Well, I'll tell you. One, I am making money when I'm selling books at conventions. I'm really good at hand selling books, and my team are very good at playing book matchmaker and hand selling books. Teresa, who's often at the booth with me, has an encyclopedic knowledge of not just what we publish and sell at our booth, but also of the genre publishing world in general. Because she has a day job that allows her to listen to audiobooks while she works, so she gets through a couple of audiobooks a week that way. I don't get through a couple of books a week listening or reading. So we're good at selling books. But selling paper at a convention is not our primary reason for going to that convention. Selling books is designed just to offset the expenditure of the convention, thus making each convention appearance free marketing for the press and for all of us as authors. And some of you have heard me say this before, and I'm going to keep saying it because apparently it keeps getting missed or lost in translation somewhere. As an author, you will not make grand profits selling books at conventions unless you are substantially better at it than I am, and most of you aren't. And most of you don't have books that are expensive enough to make great big gobs of money. And some of you are wondering why it costs so much to do a convention. I mean, you're a guest at the convention, so everything's free, right? Wrong. At most science fiction and fantasy conventions that I attend, Con Carolinas, RavenCon, JordanCon, Multiverse, Mid-South Con, the vast majority of those conventions, DragonCon, same way. If you're a guest at the convention, you are compensated with your badge. You get free admission. You might get a free companion badge, so you can bring an assistant or a significant other or just a friend to the convention with you. But you're still paying for your hotel, your travel expenses to get there, your food while you're there, your gas to get home, and the product that you're selling. So all of those costs need to figure in to what you are making at the convention. A lot of people will tell you, oh, I made back my table today. Well, that's fine. But at most conventions, the cost of the table is the least of your costs. So let's go down what those costs are. And I'm going to use real numbers from two conventions, one that I am doing this year in April and one that I have done in the past. And they're both in the same city, so some of these costs will be basically identical. I'm going to talk about RavenCon, and I'm going to talk about GalaxyCon Richmond. I've done both of these shows, and I have sold well at both of them. I will be returning to RavenCon this year. I have decided not to do GalaxyCons or most big vendor hall cons because they don't pay for themselves and generate enough profit to offset the massive amount of work that they are. But let's look at what you need to sell to offset the cost of a convention. RavenCon. Let's assume you're a guest, so your badge is free. But you still need a night in a hotel for every night you're going to be there. You got to sleep somewhere. And they frown on you crashing out in the hotel lobby, and they really frown on you sleeping in your car in the hotel parking lot. I don't know off the top of my head what I'm paying to stay in the convention hotel. I don't remember that. But the price for the overflow hotel is still on the website. So it's $143 a night, and Richmond is 5 hours from Charlotte. So for me to be at all useful on a Friday for sales or programming, I go up on Thursday. So I need a hotel for Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. And Sunday morning, I'll pack up my room and wheel my suitcase down to the booth and then load everything out and drive home Sunday night. That means I need 3 nights in a hotel, $143 times 3 plus tax. And remember that hotel and resort taxes are crazy most places. It ends up being about $550 is my estimate for what it will cost you for 3 nights in the overflow hotel. From my house to that hotel is 308 miles. My car gets roughly 350 miles per tank of gas. Roughly, because city and highway mileage are different, but I was averaging 25 miles to the gallon, so I'm going to need 2 tanks of gas to get there. And right now, a tank of gas for my car is a little over $50. So it's going to cost me $105 in gas. My booth, I got 2 tables, so my booth is $160. And then I figure for 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and yes, you do have to count Thursday because you're going to eat while you're traveling. And you got to count Sunday as a full day because you're going to eat while you're going home. I'm figuring $75 a day for food. That might be a little excessive. We'll drop that down to $50 a day for food. Because let's be real, I'm going to eat garbage on the road on Thursday. I'm going to eat garbage on the road on Sunday. So that means I've got $1,015 in hard cost. That's before I've bought a book. So yeah, my table might be $160. But that's the tiniest piece of all of it. I'm spending more than that on food. So I'm at $1,015 before I buy a book for this show. And that means that using some guesstimation and math, let's say you figure your books cost 40% of your gross revenue. So that means that for me to make back that $1,015 and still be able to buy the books, I need to sell right at $2,000 over the course of a weekend to break even. I typically do that at RavenCon. RavenCon's a very good show, especially this year. I'm looking to do well there because I wasn't there last year. Absence does make the heart grow fonder. It also gives me time to release more new books. So I expect I will break even at RavenCon. But that means that I'm selling $2,000 worth of books. That's 100 paperbacks at $20 a clip. And if you ask the vast majority of small press authors or small press publishers, you sell 100 books in a weekend, you're hustling. Now, let's look at GalaxyCon Richmond. And these numbers are a whole nother level. Now, GalaxyCon is a much, much larger event. I don't know what their numbers are for Richmond. I expect it's significantly smaller than Raleigh's numbers because the convention center is smaller. I'm going to conservatively say there's 20,000 people at that show versus like 1,500 for RavenCon. So it's a much bigger show. And it's in a convention center, not a hotel, so it's going to cost more. The cheapest booth is an artist's or publisher 10 by 8 inline booth. One table, 10-foot wide space, 8 foot deep, $950. And you have to have one more night in a hotel because it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday show, and you load in on Wednesday because you got to be ready for the show to start Thursday morning. So you've got to be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 nights. The last time I did a GalaxyCon, I got an Airbnb. It ended up being more economical for us, but looking at generally hotels in Richmond and Airbnbs in Richmond, it's not that far off. You ain't staying downtown at one of the convention hotels. You're going to stay somewhere else and drive in each day. But you're looking at, I said $950 for an Airbnb. And then you have to pay to park because you're going to be downtown in a city. So you better figure $20 a day to park. So there's $100. Gas, yeah, same $100 for gas. And this time I did stick with my $300 food budget because I'm eating at least one meal a day in a convention center and probably dinner each night in downtown. So that's going to be more expensive. So that means that that show has hard costs to me of $2,400. That means that, again, assuming that same 40% metric for your cost of books, you need to sell $4,000 in 4 days to break even at that show. That is 200 books in a weekend if your books cost $20 a piece. Obviously, this gets easier if you have expensive omnibuses or expensive limited editions or special editions. But your average cost of a book is probably going to be close to $20. So you're going to need to sell 200 books in a weekend to break even. And at GalaxyCon or any of these other big vendor hall conventions, you don't get to be on a half dozen or 8 or 10 panels over the weekend. So you might sell 200 books to 200 people. Good on you. But you're not the guy in the front of the room. And being the person in the front of the room is incredibly valuable when you're a writer because then you get to show off your personality. You get to show off that you're witty or funny or fun or goofy or whatever, or brilliant or an expert on a subject. And that makes you likable, and that makes people buy your stuff. And you want people to buy your stuff. If you're me, you want them to go out and buy everything you've ever published. Because let me tell you, if you go out right now and you buy every one of my ebooks off our Shopify site, links in the description, by the way, I'll be a very happy boy. Because that's 43 books at this point. But most of you won't. But if you buy Quincy Harker #1 and get hooked and then you buy the whole set, I'm still pretty happy. That's 10 books. But it's a much tougher hill to climb at a show like a GalaxyCon. Maybe a book lover comes back with a stack this high, and you're somewhere buried in the middle. And then they have to get to your book. And then they have to go and buy the rest. And it's harder for them to remember you because you're just some schmo at a booth where there's a half a dozen other people who are schmoes at booths selling books. It's much harder to make that personal connection at a big vendor hall con than it is at a fan run con like RavenCon. Now, I'm not saying don't do these events. If you want to, go for it. If it's local and you don't have to buy a hotel room, knock yourself out. If you can get an Uber cheaper than you can pay for parking, rock on. But go in with your eyes open and understand what the economics really are. The last time we did GalaxyCon, we did $10,000 in book sales over the course of 4 days. We were hustling. There were 4 of us in the booth and we barely sat down for 4 days. We were slinging some paper. We spent $9,000 to make that $10,000. Well, you made $1,000 over the course of the week. Yeah, we did. And that's pretty good. Except it took an entire week. We were at the show for 4 days. It took a day to load in and set up. Then we had to get home and unload. Then I had to reorder. I had to re-inventory. The time that goes into prep before and after a convention is relevant. So make sure that you're figuring all the costs in when you're deciding whether or not to do a convention. And like I said, I love doing conventions. I have built a big chunk of my career off of doing conventions. And I'm getting guest of honor invitations to conventions now, and I'm loving that. Because when you're a guest of honor, then the convention's paying for all or most of your stuff. That's a big help. But if you're doing this to make a living, then you have to pay attention to where the money is going and where it's coming from. And you may be better off staying home and writing the next book than traveling to 20 conventions in a year. It's different if you run a press because you're also there taking pitches, meeting new authors, promoting the entire press. There's a lot more ancillary work that I can do at a convention that most of you can't. And that helps offset the costs for me in the long run. But that's a quick breakdown of why I say that most of you won't make significant money selling books at conventions. And I'm sorry. I hope you make money doing lots of things in publishing, ethically. But if you think you're going to quit your day job off selling paperbacks at vendor hall cons, lie down for 15 minutes with a damp washcloth on your forehead and hope the feeling passes, because you're not. And that's Grumpy Uncle John's reality check for the day. Something else Grumpy Uncle John's got for you today is the first look at one of my newest releases. So one of the things that goes into prep for a convention is ordering new books. And the one I want to show off today is one that I just got in my hands for the very first time. This is Decade 1, a collection of the first 10 years of Quincy Harker Demon Hunter short stories. And these should be good for anyone, whether they have read any of the Quincy Harker books or if they're interested in getting into the series and want to check it out without committing to big chunky books. This is a collection of short stories that have all been previously published, some in anthologies, some as standalones, and some just on my Patreon. But it's Decade 1, and if you would like to get your hands on a copy, you can head over to our Shopify store and order it in ebook or print, paperback, hardcover right now. So why are you still watching this? Oh yeah, you're still watching this because you haven't yet liked and subscribed. So go do that. And if you really love what I do here, you can join these fine people and become a member of the channel and get your name featured on screen in every one of my videos. But then head on over to our Shopify and check out Decade 1. Bye.